Hey everyone, my name is Oblivion Fall and I am the lead animator for NightFalls Studios. I'm going to be giving a commentary on the time-lapse footage taken for a Changeling job interview, and basically explaining what you're seeing on video and giving some behind-the-scenes information that you might not be able to pick up just from the visuals alone. Now, you'll notice that we're actually starting with the end credits scene. And the reason I did this is because I was really unsure with exactly what direction to take for the main body of the video. However, I knew exactly what I wanted to do for the end credits scene, and so I basically went ahead and did it. And it was a lot of fun. It was really a lot of fun. Of course, for this, I wanted to make it as over the top and scary looking as possible. You saw there I was referencing some images of Queen Chrysalis, so I could basically get a good look for the overall tone while he's screaming into the phone there. And I tried a lot of things with I changed his eye color, I made it green, did a lot of stuff with movie clips. I had to vector all these different angles of the phone that were only there for a couple of frames, and then make a movie clip so it could have a glowing effect around it and on the inside edge, and it was quite a bit of complicated layering stuff. The most difficult thing, which you can see me doing, is actually messing around with the eyebrow. See, as the eyebrow goes down, the area of the eye that glows changes. However, with movie clips, you can't actually see what's going on there. So I had to basically break all the layers down and to try and get a basic single shape to use as a mask for the glowing effect, which was difficult. And that might not, if you're not an animator, that probably didn't make sense, but that's basically what I did. Here you can see me working on the tongue flapping animation, which my friend Sean suggested that I do. And I'm glad he did, because I got to animate frame by frame, which isn't something I do very often. Here you can see me basically cleaning up the vector lines and making them smooth. The brush tool in Flash is terrible, so if you ever do use it, you might want to mess with the vector points to make everything smooth. And then I color corrected it. Okay, so here we are getting into the actual beginning portion of the main portion of the video. Unfortunately, I didn't record myself animating the fire effect for the tie. I wish I had, but I considered that pre-production, so I wasn't recording at that stage. Here I am messing with eyebrows. I considered putting eyebrows in, and I think in the end I decided against him having eyebrows for this section. What you might notice here is actually originally I planned on fully animating the Changeling, because, the kind of movements are very slow and plodding, but in the end I decided if I'm going to do that, it might as well just be a full animation, and, that'll take too long. The project was already taking way too long at this point, so I just said, I'm just going to stick to, little, sudden changes in pose, sort of like with the blooper reel videos and stuff like that, which is something that carried on into our next... Which is something on that basically carried into our next motion comic. As you can tell, I'm recording this a little bit late into the party. Well, here I am working on the clock, basically copying stuff around. I really like that little clip there where you see me rotating the spines around. It just looks nice. So yeah, even for little things like clocks that you'd think are easy, you have to look at reference images. And one of the most difficult things to figure out was the text at the beginning. What's going on? Okay, that was me talking to someone on Discord. If you want to slow down the footage and read whatever I wrote, you can. But you don't have... I mean, if you want to, I don't know. I don't think it's important, but I am just making things move. And this goes on for quite a while, because this was very time consuming. And if you look at the time in the corner, you can see basically the time and date ticking by at the bottom right. You'll see me working late into the night a lot during this, especially close to the actual air date of the video. Excuse me, I'm a little bit tired. One of the tricky things is with characters sitting down, it's hard to come up with good key poses, because he's going to be sitting there with his front hooves between his legs for pretty much the entire thing. And so trying to come up with good key poses is a little bit difficult because I don't have that much to work with, and I don't want to reuse the same poses too much. But one of the most time-consuming aspects is me just sitting there trying to figure out how best to approach things, which is why I did certain things like the end credit scene first. You'd actually be surprised how much time is wasted by me pondering over how to tackle a scene. Now here, I'm just editing some lines. I had to get a few extra lines from Thornquill, the voice actor, because I decided that I wanted to have him laugh at the end. Actually, when I started working on this, I didn't even have the script for the very end figured out, so there had to be a couple of lines recorded later. Like, you know, the hoo-hoo-hoo, or whatever it is that the Changeling says in the video. Again, you can watch it if you want to see that. Yeah, I'm just messing. Audacity, I know it's not as good as Adobe, like, Audition, but you could do a lot of, like, basic stuff. Like, and like, to mix audio, you only really need basic tools. Like, you can mess with the volume, you can move things around. It's no fancy compression or anything, but, you know, it works. Basically, one of the things I do is I just combine a lot of sounds together. For example, the ambience was actually a mixture of 3 different ambiences that I found, and that I put at different volumes, and I equalized. Like, I liked the high frequencies from one, but I liked the low frequencies from the other. So I equalized them out and got, like, a happy medium. Now here, you can see me picking fonts and stuff. Now, I don't remember what font this is. I think it's called Grinched. I'm not sure. Oh, the Changeling has his own font. I don't know what that font's called, actually. But the font that Filthy Rich is using is, I believe, called... No, it's called Chiller, I think. Or is this one called Chill? I can't tell, it's going by so fast, I'm trying to read whatever font it is. I'm sure if you, like, slow down the footage even more on YouTube, you could tell. But yeah, there's been a lot of fonts that I had to look up. And yeah, the Changeling's font is called Chiller. There we go. I wanted his thing to look really unstable and scratchy, so I did everything with the brush tool. And I basically selected the entire thing on a separate keyframe but hit smooth. It's something I learned from Oni and G, one of his tutorials. And for the letters themselves, I had them alternate between growing and shrinking. Here we go. I don't remember what font I picked for that, but I like it. Here you can do me doing some complicated masking to get the outline color of, like, the outline of that text to basically, you know, change depending on whether or not it's the clock of the wall behind it. Now, one of the issues with a, you know, messy font, like the one I used for the Changeling's voice, is when you have a bunch of I's, a bunch of the same letter next to each other, it looks kind of weird. So, as you might be able to tell, I actually slightly changed the shapes of all of the I's to be slightly, to have some variation. In between, like, the wiggling animation, I actually made sure they were all slightly different sizes, and I basically skewed them all just a little bit. Now, here's an issue where I had to make a happy, you know, mouth shape for the ending noise, because originally when I built the Changeling rig from complete scratch, that's another reason this took long, is I had to build the entire rig from scratch. I started with nothing. I had to now make a happy mouth comp, which I wasn't planning on, so I basically took the sad mouth comp and basically did a bunch of, like, shape tweens with the inside of a mouth and other things I had to do by hand to try and make this, like, happy mouth shape, and that was a lot of work. And I actually kept it on video. A lot of the puppet building and, you know, pre-production, I don't usually record that stuff. So it's cool that I managed to get some of that in here. Making mouth comps is actually not that difficult. It's one of those things that I'm like, every time I have to do it, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do it. But when I actually go to do it, it's not that bad. It's pretty easy for the most part. And back to audio again. What am I working on here? That's right, I'm working on the noise, but right before he laughs, I think. That was the one I'm messing around. I just had something playing in Movie Maker, I don't know what that was. Sorry, Media Player. Not Movie Maker, what am I talking about? What am I working on here? Oh, I'm getting a deep bassy boom. That is a, now this is a sound effect I use a lot. It's like a ooh kind of noise. And I actually take that from a song by Paul Wardingham, who's a great guitarist. He has a song called Assimilate Regenerate that has a really nice, like, bass lowering sound. It's pretty good, I use it in a lot of things. Now here you can see me making his chair. Filthy Rich's chair was something I left to last because I couldn't find any good show references for a chair, so I basically had to make one from scratch, and I didn't want to do that, so I put it off for a long time. But yeah, making that chair was actually fun. Sorry, it wasn't fun, but the end result was nice. That's what I meant to say. Now you can see me messing with the desk to basically make it so I can turn it to a new camera angle. A couple of the items on his desk I think I scrapped in the end. I don't remember if I kept the feather on there till the end or not. Oh, by the way, that's another thing that might not have been obvious, is he has a bunch of money bags behind him. Literal money bags. Just in a pile behind his chair. I don't think anyone picked up on that because for most of the camera angles I used in the end, I found there wasn't really a way for me to get a good camera angle that still kept the money bags in there, like in view. Like if I zoomed out so that you could see the money bags, the composition of the shot just started to look bad. And so in the end you can barely kind of see them. Now here I am messing with the Filthy Rich rig, which I did a lot of overhauling for my male rigs for this. Alright, now here you can see me actually putting the stuff on the paper. Yeah, I believe I simplified the Changeling's look for that. Low angle. Let's see. Now occasionally you'll see something at the bottom of the screen that'll pop up that'll say something like, you know, your screen is being shared, blah blah blah. Every time that pops up, that actually means that I was in the Discord chat for the Patreon, you know, Discord patrons, and they were watching me animate. So they watched me animate a lot of this live. And usually when I do that, there'll be like a little notification at the bottom of the screen that'll be there for a few seconds, and I usually hide it. Alright, moving on. You might have missed that about 10 seconds ago-ish. You saw me, like, shuffle around some vector points for one of his mouthpieces. I don't use male rigs very often, so every time I do use them, which I now use them a little bit more, I always end up making a bunch of changes, because my female rigs have gone through so many overhauls. Here again, you can see me messing with vector points on his mouth. Went through so many overhauls. When I originally created my rigs, I actually created them using the brush tool. And as I mentioned in the last commentary, when Sean was here, the brush tool in Flash is freaking horrible, and it's not good. And because I built my rigs, I basically, like, looked at like the official rigs and basically recreated them piece by piece using the brush tool and the smooth button, and it was a painstaking process, and the end result was actually pretty bad. You can't tell from a distance, but when you're animating and you're up close, it looks horrible. So I've had to like revector so many aspects of my rigs using the line tool now, and even then sometimes I've revectored those just because I want them to look even better. So my female rigs are pretty good, but my male rigs, which I barely use, are out of shape, and so you'll see me fixing things like the mouth comb quite a bit, actually. I believe, though, I made most of the changes I needed during this project for Filthy Rich. I like Filthy Rich's design. Actually, there you can see me taking some vectors from a vector pack I did for a friend of mine who commissioned me. She wanted a custom pose of her OC flying, and she had the hooves together, and I had to draw custom hooves for that. So when I realized, hey, I want Filthy Rich to put his hooves together, I'm like, you know, I can just borrow that from something I've done previously. Reusing work, that's one thing Flash is good at. You can reuse stuff a lot in different ways. It's very useful. Anyway, I believe we're getting near the end. I don't remember which line this is. That's right, he's making the pun. I wanted his eyebrows to go all the way up for the only point in this entire animation where his eyebrows go all the way up. Now one thing about the audio at that point is you'll hear, after he makes the pun, you'll hear the voice actor say, "Oh my god, really?" Like in his head. That was unscripted. While we were editing the audio for it, I was on a call with some of the patrons, and my friend Sean, who's not here with me today, but you might have heard him in the last commentary. I was sharing my audio, we were sitting there in the chat with some of our patrons while I was editing the audio, and that line was in there, and we laughed so hard. When I was just listening to the recording, that was unscripted, of course. I had to put that in. I'm like, you know, I'm going to make that a thought, I'm going to add some reverb, and it was pretty good. Alright, now I'm going through and adding the very beginning shot. I think the very beginning shot of the Rich's Barnyard Bargains. I think I didn't even put that in until the end. Here you can see me messing with Drool, messing with some stuff, and now the credits. So yeah, here you can just see me updating this, and also updating the names of the Patreon patrons on the side, because, you know, every time I do one of these videos, I gotta put all the $5 patrons and up in there, and I basically have to look at my Patreon stats, and I usually order them by, like, who's contributed the most over time and stuff like that. And so every time I have to change it, even if some of the same people are in there. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of this. If you watched this all the way through, thank you. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something. And yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching.